evening, Chi-Town. Good evening, every town across the country, across the world, because we are on in Guam. We already know that. It's the Mass Appeal Show, IntellectualRadio.com. We're part of your iHeartRadio network. Myself, Mag1, and the lovely Dree.
Hello, my lovelies. It's good to be back.
In full swing today. So we have so much to cover this day because we had a little bit of a week off, so we had a buffer so we could get everything back on track because we had a lot of real intense stuff that was going on in the world and around and internally with our own lives. And so we needed a little bit of time to just recharge, take a step back, look at life, really appreciate that. We've seen some of the better ways of life as it is as a whole and seen some people rally around some things, which is really good to see. And I just kind of talked to Dree off air about that a little bit because I've had a little bit of a epiphany about things that have gone on in my own life, so I kind of have a better appreciation for humanity, and that's an extremely important thing because it was looked like it was going on a crash course for nowhere. So that was really good. Just a little week for us to take a little buff to get ourselves back on track, emotionally, intellectually, and the like. And this is Intellectual Radio, as we had already stipulated, IntellectualRadio.com, part of your iHeartRadio network. One of the great shows that we have on this particular network you can find, as I had taken a look at on Sunday afternoons. Not really sure exactly what the name of that show is, but just make sure you guys are tuning in because there's so many unbelievable shows that are on IntellectualRadio.com. If you haven't had an opportunity to take a listen or to see some of the simulcasting of any of those shows, tune in because it's going on regular basis. And I think you'll enjoy a lot of the format and a lot of the content that you're hearing on the show and across the radio network. So, of course, the Mass Appeal Show, every single Wednesday you find us here from 8 to 10 p.m. with the exception of days that we need a buffer. But we're back in action here. Myself, of course, with the lovely Dree, because she makes this ship go. She is the engine that propels it. She is the I can't refer to you as the bowels of the of the vessel because that wouldn't sound like it's giving you the honor that you deserve. But she is the creme de la creme. She is the summa cum laude. She is the everything that makes a thing.
I'm the summa cum laude.
I'm just the figurehead. You know what I mean? I'm just here. All right.
Awesome.
I'm just here to just look around here. Just listen.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm eye candy or not, but I'm just here for just doing stuff, just randomly doing stuff.
Yeah,
she tells me what to do. I just push buttons and do all types of random stuff in here.
And then maybe I might take a tour around the other end of the table and do some ballet practice on this bar sitting here in front of us.
Listen, we've got everything in here now. The IntellectualRadio.com studios are now just taking a full ecstatic big pickup in here. We've got all types of new things inside of the studio. So yeah, so we have so for all our social media, our camera, filming, all the other things there, we've added some new dimensions of things in here so that you can do some live streaming. One of the most popular things on social media now is recording live.
Yes.
Going live
on the Facebook.
And so what happens is for a lot of the hosts that have shows across the formatting here that are not even in the XM range or whatever that may be, but just everyday shows that are on here, they have particularly groups of people that support them, obviously friends that are watching them on an everyday basis, and then they have a support system that's behind them on social media. They want to be seen, so those people go live and they can actually see it. Obviously, if they're not able to just get in on to IntellectualRadio.com because most people have their Facebook application going 24/7 without ever logging off, so it's easier for them to just get on and watch someone's updated live page and be able to see it in real time.
Yeah, and so an interesting sort of point to that, and I think we may or may not have covered this a few weeks ago, but Apple has developed some technology that'll disable smartphone cameras or disable their cameras, like in large settings, which would obviously impact Facebook Live and perhaps the ability to record the police while doing their job or not doing their jobs in situations where there's large gatherings of people. The initial reports are saying that though they developed this technology to avoid for the use in concerts, so that large ticket concerts aren't being broadcast live via Facebook Live, and therefore nobody has to pay for the tickets to go and attend. Obviously, somebody's got to pay for them because somebody's got to Facebook Live it, but it's a really interesting notion to think that they would come up with this technology to protect artists on tour.
There's always an
without some other sort of underlying
motivation. Sure.
Yeah, and then, in the wrong hands, perhaps attached to a Stingray car that they deploy to every protest I've ever been at, will disable your cameras at the same time as tapping into your phones.
So I'm looking. Yeah, stay right there.
Yeah.
I'm looking. Because I was easy dropping with my eyes at
your eyes dropping.
Yeah. Is this a Facebook? Is that one?
No, this is my flip book. So this is a post tagged from NASA, and
Tech and Buzz is the titling of the overall area that that genre that it's discussing.
Correct.
But this has to do with an African jet that is engaged with what looks like a UFO, definitely an unidentified flying object. Unidentified, because I don't know what unidentified is. Unidentified would be Earl's shirt. That is 100% true. Listen, Earl has a very nice shirt on. I think it's nice. A lot of people would really think it's nice, but it's unidentified because I don't know what era it came from. I can't really put my fingers on it. Okay. Earl referenced it earlier. He said it's kind of an Al Bundy-ish type of shirt. It could be 70s. It could be 60s. It could be 80s. I can't put my finger. I don't know. It could be Versace. It could be this millennium for sure. I don't know, but it definitely looks comfortable. He looks nicely fitted in that shirt. That's all I can tell you. You got to see it for yourself. We're gonna get a live shot, I think, because we got enough equipment in this place. We got all this equipment in here. Let's make use of it, Earl. We're gonna get a live shot at Earl after our radio break.
We're gonna go Facebook Live.
It's like the likelihood of that happening, ladies and gentlemen, is like that UFO that I was just talking about, that unidentified flying object. It's likely that thing will land here
on
in the studio. Yeah, in the studio, literally land in the studio before we'll get that shot of Earl. But just take my word for it.
Left that one behind.
They left his shirt behind. That's for sure. That part I'm sure of 1,000%. Listen, I've met my 2 joke and 2 laugh quota. I've made it.
In
Earl
7
laughed
minutes.
both
I
times.
think it's a new.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to IntellectualRadio.com, the Mass Appeal Show again. We'll see you next week. So we haven't even run down the format of what we're talking about today. I've managed to have an entire open of a show without telling you anything about what we're going to talk about. At most, we talk about the unidentified flying object and the African jet that was following it. We talked about Earl's shirt, and we covered a little bit about Apple and its enabling and disabling of the camera on your phone. But we're going to get down into some core stuff, obviously. The GOP convention, which we had no opportunity to cover in Cleveland. Right. And then, of course, in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia specifically, the convention was there. Some very poignant words and speeches that were given out by a lot of individuals. Obviously, the First Lady, our very own Michelle Obama, had a lot of really important things to say. I think we can address those. We'll address where we stand as far as Hillary Clinton with the email situation and what we can find out more about
the new email situation.
Yeah, because this is just getting more ridiculous by the second. But we can tell you in a very short breath that obviously the support.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of politics. This is convention talk all day.
I'm going to let Dree just basically have the floor, and she's going to go schizophrenic. I'll chime in a couple of times with a few jokes about the GOP and probably a couple of things. One of the things I saw on social media that was actually kind of comical is it was direct slap at the culture period, but it basically had a sort of truth to it. I'll just tell you, and mostly in a short quote, unquote, if you will, and try to get the gist of it. It said that Michelle Obama, the first woman, whether African American or otherwise, to have a speech in both conventions.
Right. Yeah.
Where's the bell? Boom.
Where's the bell? We the bell. It's sitting right there. It's right there
Obviously,
on the corner
if you've been
of the
living
desk.
under a rock for the past 4 weeks or whatever, awesome.
Yeah. Ayo.
Courtesy of Ivanka, or whatever the heck her name
Melania.
is. Trump.
Melania.
Who's Ivanka? She's the daughter, or I don't know who's who anymore. Melania and Ivanka is one.
Ivanka is the daughter.
The daughter.
The daughter. Because that was
tells
from
you
his
how
first.
much I know about any of
I don't know if that was
Donald
from his
Trump's-
first or his second marriage to Ivana.
Okay, that's where I'm all. I have no clue what's going on anymore.
You know,
Melania makes
you can't keep up with his wives.
She makes a speech at the GOP convention, which sounds eerily like the very speech that came out of the mouth, almost word for word, verbatim, of our very own First Lady, Michelle Obama. And so, if you didn't see that and you haven't had an opportunity, it's still going on. You can get.
No, you probably already saw it.
Yeah, well,
a couple conventions ago.
It was a few years ago, so you saw it.
In 2008. So this will be the
this
second
wasn't a couple months ago. You've seen it for the second opportunity to get a chance to see it, but acted by a white woman.
Acted by a white lady. Reenacted by a white lady.
Portrayal dramatically by a African American non-lookalike. So you can get your opportunity to take a look at it. I'm sure they have the manuscript on there. You can also get that and see.
Oh yeah, you can make your text comparisons. What was even more awesome, and in the wake of this, a very young black journalist is the one who discovered it and first outed her as a plagiarist, outed her plagiarism. But Twitter, in all of glorious Twitter fashion, exploded with the hashtag Melania Trump quotes, and some of the funniest, like, gut rumbling laughter. I just Let me
interject for 1 second because I have to get this off my chest. Every time you say Melania, it almost sounds like she's a venereal disease. So I want her to be. Listen, for the sake of not making me giggle, every time I refer to her, we're just going to try to make her Melania.
We'll call her Mrs. Third Trump.
That I can do that. That's still going to be a very small giggle.
Mrs.
For the
Mrs.
other reasons.
Trump's the third.
Yeah, but the adolescent in me is still just going to be giggling every time you say Melania, because that is
Melania.
That's the real deal there. Okay, but you know how we operate here. We'll ring the bell for that. That's worth it.
Right.
It's the Mass Appeal Show, IntellectualRadio.com. We're part of your iHeartRadio network. Every single Wednesday, you find us here from 8 to 10 p.m. We have other stuff, obviously, that we have to cover too. Just going down the line. We're going to get to some of the Olympic stuff because there is a whole bunch of goofy stuff that's going on there. But we'll try to collage that in with the sports stuff because our Crosstown Classic is currently going on. The White Sox
have
taken the first two games of the series, and they are now in Game 3, where they have transferred over to the north side back at the friendly confines of Wrigley Field for game number 3. That's how they did it this year. Yeah, instead of playing two different series for the Cup, they'll play and split them up in 2 and 2 back-to-back. So they'll play 2 games, obviously, which have already been played for the first 2 that were won at U.S. Cellular Field. And now...
Comiskey Park.
Okay. Thank you very much. And so now... the 2 games that will be the finale starting today and obviously tomorrow night at 7 will be at Wrigley Field, which is a 0-0 tie right now.
So they're only doing 4 games for the Crosstown this season?
That's it. Yeah, for the Classic this year, just 4 games.
What?
And currently, as we stand right now, the White Sox and the Cubs are deadlocked at 0. Cubs have not been offensively inclined in this series to this point. And they're on the mound right now. The White Sox are hurling a rookie. For the most part, he's a rookie. He had a couple of spot bullpen starts, bullpen appearances for the Rangers, where the White Sox picked him up in a one-on-one trade for the Vols kid. This kid, Anthony Ronaldo, he's on the hill today. He's pitted against Jason Hamill, and right now deadlocked at 0. White Sox standing at 50-50 right now. There are 50 wins up, 50 wins absolutely 500 as an organization after having such a tremendous start at the beginning of the season, which looked extremely promising. But we'll get into that later. But as it stands right now, the Cubs holding a 6.5 game lead in the division, which is at a paramount, disastrous area for where they should be versus where they started at and where the Cardinals are surging and where the Pittsburgh Pirates are surging. So we'll get to all those things obviously later because those are on the docket. Then of course we want to talk about the latest acquisition for the Cubs, and that's Aroldis Chapman, and all of the things that have come around his joining the club with his domestic violence issues, and what that truly means, how that translates, and what does that really mean as far as athletes and what you believe their transgressions in their personal lives and how that translates to what they are on the field. We'll get to those things obviously as well too. And then of course, Kevin Durant and the U.S. team have started their prelims for the Olympics, and they are dominating obviously every team in the world in this first half of their prelims. And then of course they will actually be here on Friday at the United Center. If you're so inclined, you can see the United States team led by Kevin Durant and our own very own Jimmy Butler at the United Center. At about 7 p.m., I believe that's on Tuesday night, taking on Venezuela. So if you would like to go ahead and take a look at that, you can also go on StubHub and find those things out. StubHub does not sponsor us, but you have now got an opportunity, StubHub,
to step up.
Promo. Thank you. 708-223-8953. That's the number for you to call in anytime that you want to chime in. We're also going to cover the Rio situation, the Russian team, the Rio in Brazil, all of the IOC, the International Olympic Committee is doing everything in their power to see if they can get them disbanded from the Olympics altogether, because the Russians have just made. They've
been finding all the drugs.
Yeah, the Russians have just made this.
If there's a steroid on this planet to be found or to be made,
those boys are on it.
Find it.
Them boys are on it. Them boys are on it. No problem. What else are we covering in the round the world spectrum? We got obviously Rio. We're covering obviously the GOP, from what we didn't really get an opportunity to touch on. Of course, our Democratic convention here in Philadelphia, as it is right now. And then what else do we got on the docket?
Well, we in Mexico, issues surrounding mass deportation, and we have our own refugee crisis happening right here in between North and South America, mainly South and Central America, but lots of refugees in very civil conflict torn countries are trying to migrate and flee north, obviously being through Mexico. So they're having their own issues, which is backing up American deportations here on our soil, and it's essentially adding to the global refugee crisis that we're experiencing in Europe / the Mideast.
Well, that's a whole lot. That's
and then the RNC kind of sort of talked about Russia, and Trump basically challenged Russia to hack some folks, and so I guess technically that's kind of a global thing.
Well, since we have so much
to cover, thing, but
we have a ridiculous amount on the docket, and you're going to have a whole windful of mouthing to go ahead and get out there. So let's go ahead and take a break real fast. We'll go to a little bit of music that'll give you guys a chance to recharge and get yourselves ready. 708-223-8953. We're going to go to CC, and she's going to tell you how much he loves me too. It's the Massive Hill Show, IntellectualRadio.com,
iHeartRadio.
That's my girl, CC Peniston, right there. He loves me. I know that. That's that old school Steve Silk Hurley's. That's that 12-inch vinyl mix from back in 1999. If you don't know nothing about that vinyl, you don't know nothing about the real mix, that house head stuff right there. That's house music. CC was a real big house, I guess, pioneer, because I mean the way her style of music was kind of like not that really bang 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 repetitive beat music. Hers kind of was that deep house. If you guys are real true house heads, you guys already know that deep house is that next level house music where you just got in the cut and you were just getting it in, sweating, and you could just see people just having a good time. Deep house and house music all together just brought a generation of dancing and culture and people together. That style of partying back in the day was just, I mean, I think it still was the greatest of all time. And obviously, there's so many different eras to go through when you go through the Woodstock days and your Lollapalooza true days, and that existed in the world. And we came through disco and funk and jazz and all those other little sassy starts of types of genres of dance and cultural music and interaction. But I personally came through as a youth in the house era, and that to me trumps everything. But maybe you got an opinion on it. I mean, hey, let me know, because we're about to get deep into a lot of our political agenda today. So 708-223-8953, that's the number to reach us in. This is the Mass Appeal Show on IntellectualRadio.com. Dree,
yes,
tell us what's going down, baby.
Oh, where do we begin? Let's just start, since we were talking about UFOs and aliens, let's start with the RNC, because they all looked alien to me.
Dree, you're a funny son of a gun.
For those of you who are watching us live right now, take a look at my face. This is how I was looking the entire time I watched footage from the RNC.
That is a hell of a face there.
Is that really what you wanted?
It looks
say?
Like you either had a really bad meal that is about to come out the wrong way, or you were very, very displeased with what's going on.
It was,
or a combination of both.
So I made this post to Facebook, and this pretty much sums it up in about 3 sentences. Look, I'll never see the inside of a Klan rally. Not even 3 sentences. 1 swift sentence. Look, I'll never see the inside of a Klan rally, but I'm pretty sure I got damn close watching the RNC the past couple of days, culminating in the cluster-ery.
What's the middle part of that
speech. Rhymes with duck.
One of the White Sox players, his name also rhymes with duck. JB
Cluster duckery.
Let's call it cluster shuckery.
Cluster shuckery. There it is. It was a hot mess. Like, the only thing that was missing was a white power banner hanging atop the stage. It was.
I thought I saw that subliminal message that comes onto your screen that you're not technically supposed to see. I saw Aryan recruitment on there. It was pretty. Listen, I saw just about 2 or 3 minutes of it, and that was about enough. That's all I could really tolerate.
In fact, it was so dubiously inspiring that David Duke, has decided to run for political office. He wants
and
if
you guys don't know who David Duke is, he is the Klan leader. He was
former. Let's give him his non-credit.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Former Grand Wizard or leader of the Ku Klux Klan was so bizarrely inspired by the RNC
that he threw his hat in the race, huh?
That he's gonna run for Senate, like the U.S. kind.
That's good inspiration right there.
OMG. The hate, the xenophobia, the pretty blatant racism, all wrapped into into stringing alongs of sentences that get increasingly more incredulous as they go. It's like, wait, you can't go any further than that. Whitney did it again. They've just undone their racism, like one speech after another.
Well, to their,
it's you laugh. You gotta laugh because it's so damn scary. Like this is happening. This Cleveland was taken over by thousands of people who have elected office and staffs, and they make legislation
that are blatant racists, utterly racist. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Not only are they racist, but they are also homophobic.
And they're plagiarists.
They're everything ist. You had a bunch of ists over in the city of Cleveland.
Right.
So they brought a championship to Cleveland, and they brought all the racists in right after this. I'm not. It's so much of a culture shock. I can't take it right now.
And then the talking heads on the news, faux news, were formed their mouths to praise candidate Trump for the very things the past 8 years they had been denouncing President Obama about. For example, he was very professional in his use of the teleprompter. He stayed on message, and we were really impressed to see Donald Trump stay on message and use that teleprompter. Rewind 8 years ago. What? Barack Obama can't give a speech without a teleprompter? Does he not like know what to say? Are all of his thoughts fed to him by somebody behind the scenes with a typewriter? Really?
Listen, even though they're lawyers, apparently none of them took the Hippocratic oath, because these are the biggest hypocrites in the history of the life itself. This is something entirely ridiculous.
Doctors take the Hippocratic oath. That's pretty much how, that's how it was. Yeah.
Okay, well, that sums it up.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it sort of leaves you speechless. It leaves you fearful. It leaves you questioning humanity. It affirms in your mind that entirely too many people are so ill-informed and underinformed, malleable to empty, hateful rhetoric and soundbite politics. It's frightening. It is absolutely frightening.
Now, on the surface, I have to obviously I'm to be the advocate of the devilish nature, because we have to spin everything, at least so that each individual, whether you are against what we are saying in the format and the context of what we're saying, or you're with us, I still want to make sure that we get to points that are salient to what's going on. What message could you have possibly taken after all of the rhetoric, after all of the racial epithet? What message did you hear that resonated from Trump's campaign would be beneficial? If you could find one thing, because I knew it's really difficult, because if I don't want us to be closed-minded in this thing. What could you have possibly taken away from what he said that would let you think that at least he has one thing that he is on the right path for this nation to do right, or at least be in the right frame of reference to do right by?
This is gonna say a lot. Okay, after 4 days of cluster shuckery, the one sentence that made any sort of feasible, viable sense is that NAFTA pretty much tore this country apart.
That's the one thing that I took away from that.
That's it. That's literally one cohesive statement that I could be like, oh, okay. And then in the rest of the 4 days, I'm like,
And his PR representative, who probably wrote this, I'm just wondering, how did they slip that in there? I mean, because That's probably the only thing that has any accuracy to it and that made any
Whatsoever.
reference to something that was going to change
something
in America that he
positively for everyone, not just white people and the police, but everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's the one sentence out of 4 days of lobbying. It's like, what? At least in the first 2 days of the DNC, I'm pretty much on board with most of the things that are being said.
But then here, everyone's going to say that you are a Democrat, so they're going to say that you're following in line, that you are.
I'm not following.
You are a robot. But I want to make sure that people understand. If you guys haven't heard anything over the last 2 years that she and I have been on the air,
I pay my taxes. I can criticize my party.
She is not the biggest fan of Obama. So even at the highest order of Democratic falling in line,
I am a fan.
I'm not the biggest fan.
I am critical.
Yeah.
As a taxpayer, as I should be, about some decisions on policy.
You don't necessarily believe that everything that he has done has been golden.
No.
And when it comes to something that he hasn't done that hasn't been right, you have been quick
I will absolutely say it.
100%. So you are not that Democrat that just falls in line and falls in love with everything that's said by the Democratic nation.
No.
So that being said, I just want to point out where your stance is, because your resume precedes you as an activist, as a political activist, as a campaign manager, as a campaign sponsor or supporter, as someone who probably
as an insider,
someone who will probably run for office at some point later on down the line.
Maybe.
And I will be right behind you with the signs
in
the office, doing everything with you 1,000%. You are some person who has the right way of looking and taking a perspective on something without having your party's interest be the one that completely influences you on what you believe in. So yes. So I just wanted to point that out as a cleanup for you.
I'm an independent thinker. Ring the bell on that one, because we need a lot more of those these days. We could use a lot more of those.
But yes, in a short sentence, the GOP convention was a haven of stupidity.
And you know what I will give it to them because the RNC is pretty damn good at finding the one black person to get on stage and say Black lives don't matter. Good for you, RNC. Good for you.
That's good stuff.
Like, you're just you're resourceful.
You're
resourceful. That one black person was. He's a chief of police out of Wisconsin.
Now, do you know that recently the chief of police across the nation have started a new group for and it's one of the particular organizations that Michael Jordan, who has thrown his hat into the I can't stay silent, I must say something and speak out against the hateful crimes and things that against African-American humanity, as he has made his way into it, and donations and money that he's thrown into it. It's one of the organizations that he just gave a couple $1 million of support to. This chief of police for the betterment of human interaction and law enforcement. It's got some long titling to it, I know that much. But yeah, that was one of the organizations that he gave support to. So just on that note, as the chief of police, I'll get more in detail with that as we kind of delve into that as we go on.
Okay. So we need to dig into that. I saw something in my timeline about Michael Jordan not being able to stay silent anymore, and I'm like, you've been silent so long, I'm not really interested in what you want to talk about right now. So I kind of skimmed past that one, to be honest. And now that you're telling me about it, pretty sure it was a good idea, because it would have made me even more incensed. I mean, just like Michael Jordan is as a basketball player and an icon of Chicago. He, is a fantastic specimen of athleticism. Okay,
true story.
He has given so much to the city by way of athletics and championships and city pride in the Chicago Bulls. So I will give that to him. I will put that in a bucket and be like, there you go. You get all of that, sir. But everything that falls outside of that bucket is literally a laundry list of things he's been silent on. Like when kids were killing each other over his shoes. Nothing to say. Like when countless videos of cops blatantly murdering black people on camera. Nothing to say. It troubles me when athletes or people or celebrities, let's just lump them all in, celebrities.
They become Johnny-come-latelys?
When they're, or if at all, and when or Johnny come with gobbledygook to say, I'm just like, no, sir, no, I need you to consult with a publicist that will tell you, probably not a good idea.
Well, he's had it up to there, so the publicist couldn't stop him.
And I'm so glad I haven't bought a pair of Jordans since like 98.
True story for me, too. I haven't had any as well.
Okay.
I had a pair bought for me, but I don't wear them.
There's a very distinct reason why I haven't bought a pair of Jordans since 98. One, way too expensive for something made for 17 cents in China. But two, I don't buy into this gym shoe craze, and AKA a money pit. It's worse than buying a car. You walk those shoes out of the store, you cannot return them.
Sorry, I got you in trouble, Michael Jordan.
You can't. If you keep them clean, apparently you can resell them. They're wild for them in Korea. Great. But no, I don't get it. If Michael Jordan had opened his mouth and said something like Jesse Williams had said, man, I would have went out and bought a pair of Jordans that night.
You know what he did, though? He basically sutured the wound because money seems to be the thing to do. So that pretty much just fuses up that little cut that you have, throws a patch on it, and then we scrape off the ends of it, and then everything looks fine after that. Right. But that's what's happening.
Right, and you see, and that's it.
On a better note, though, just a side note, as far as giving money, LeBron James, King James, just recently gave $41 million to 1,100 students for college.
That's amazing.
That's insanity.
You know what?
And that makes noted. Me like him a little bit. Look it up in the city of Cleveland's ledger on their.
That makes me like him a little more.
And someone said the exact same thing via some social media.
Yeah, that makes me like him a little more. I want to say I like. And you know what? He had to do that, to be perfectly honest, because he stood his butt up there at the beginning of the ESPYs next to three other guys. Like, look, we need to do something in our communities. We need to be a part of the solution and not sit in our celebrity bubble enjoying our celebrity privilege.
But we
need to help. And he put his money where his mouth is. Defense, and I respect the hell out of that.
He had been doing that before then. LeBron James has been giving unbelievably for quite some time. Even before he was the big contract King James. Right. He's been giving unbelievably to the city of Cleveland, to Anchorage, Ohio, to all of the surrounding areas.
You mean Akron.
Anchorage. Jesus. I'm sorry, Alaska. Sorry, Alaska. Didn't mean to put you guys in Cleveland.
Although there might be an Anchorage, Ohio, just not the place that got the money.
And I'm sure they're going to get some because he's giving money away in Ohio like it's going out of style. And he's been doing that for quite some time.
That's laudable. It's absolutely applaud worthy.
Even in the even in the wake of his decision to go to Miami, that particular press coverage was all donated to the YMCA's of the city of Cleveland and Akron, Ohio. So everything that he has been doing, everything that he does, even with commercials, he gives a certain amount. Just from obviously being a part of Kia, I understand what goes in internally. Part of that money all goes back to a lot of his own funds and for some other stuff that they have for researching him. And then for Black Lives and all the Black Lives Matters, he's been giving money unconditionally for quite some time, and he has continued to do it. And now,
Dwayne Wade was was part of that speech at the ESPYs, right?
That's correct.
Dwayne Wade has been doing tons of stuff here in Chicago.
And Chris Paul as well.
And I'm really glad that we're getting Dwayne Wade back, actually, because now he can be more involved and present, rather, for the work that he's doing in Chicago. So I appreciate that speech. I appreciate them putting their money where their mouth is, and I hope they continue to do that. And just kind of circle back to Michael Jordan after his gobbledygook. and then investing some money to like for what might be a good cause. I don't know. A wise man once told me that in the nonprofit arena, there's no such thing as bad money, because even if bad people are giving you money, you can do things way better with it than they would. So you should take it and do better things with it. And he's probably listening right now like, oh my God, I'm a very wise man who told her these things.
On that note, we'll just let you know that all we do here on the Mass Appeal Show is win, 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 no matter what.
Yes.
It's the DJ Khaled remix.
Here on
Chris, Rick Ross, T-Pain, and Snoop on the Mass Appeal Show.
On IntellectualRadio.com, iHeartRadio.
And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there. Ludacris going in on the verse, cause I never been defeated and I won't stop now. Keep your hands up, get them in the sky for the homies that ain't making it in my folks locked down. I never went nowhere, but they saying Luda's back. Blame it on that contour, the hood call it Luda-yak. And I'm on this foolish track, so I spit my foolish flow. My hands go up and down, like strippers' booties go. My verses still be serving, tight like a million virgins. Last time on a college remix, now I'm on the original version. Can't never count me out, y'all better count me in. Got 20 bank accounts, accountants count me in. Make millions every year, the South champion. Cause all I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get it up. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there. Swerving in my low, head on the swivel, you know serving me's a no. Clean as a whistle as I pull out in my race. Telephone passenger, they see it, they say, oh boy. Tell Kelly, back it up, my niggas call me loco. Down for armed traffic, and don't make me pull that mofo. Ask you what you laughing at, represent that mud life. Dirty money, bitch, you better get your mud right. We come together, holding hands and holler mud life. We all strapping all black, it's like mud life. All we do is scream. You riding to what? If we riding tonight, now you riding with me cause you wasn't riding. All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get it up. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there.
Heat in the kitchen, hot on the stove, water getting boiled, dope being sold, Snoopy in the hookie, system overload. I've been running this rap game since I was 20 years old. I hung with the worst of them, bust till I burst them up, floss them up, toss them up. Harder work, close them up. Pardon me, I'm bossing up. Brace you up, bless you, bro. Don't mess with us. We like the youth in the 80s. Back to back, set a track. Hit the lick, get it back. Get the trick, jump the track. Bitch, I want my money back. Time and time again, while I'm sipping on this gin. Al Davis said it. Let's just win, baby, win.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get it up. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
And they stay there.
And they say yeah.
And they stay there.
Up, down, we're up, down, yo. All we do is win, 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 win. You throw your...
Make them stay there.
It's the Mass Appeal Show, IntellectualRadio.com. That's Luda, Rick Ross, T-Pain, and Snoop coming in on the track. That's the remix of DJ Khaled's All I Do Is Win on the Mass Appeal Show, IntellectualRadio.com. Luda was actually in the state of Indiana. He was in Whiting, actually, at the Festivals of the Lake did a little concert out there, they always have somebody kind of slide in there. So if you guys didn't know on the slip, Luda was in town, well, at least on the outskirts of Chicago, but in Whiting, Indiana, near the Horseshoe Casino for the Festival by the Lake. That was this past weekend. So if you hadn't known, or if you did know, or you saw him, you had a chance to get out there. I'm pretty sure people were going out there pretty strong if you hadn't had a chance to see Luda. 708-223-8953. We're on big time topics right now, talking about Michael Jordan, his contributions now as he thrown his hat into the I need to say something and speak out and support what's happening with Black Lives race. And then, of course, what's been going on with the Democratic National Convention, the Republican National Convention, and where you stand, what's your thoughts, where you feel this country will be if we eventually have Trump as a president of the United States, or if Hillary Clinton, who is now under more scrutiny for emails as things have come to pass now. 708-223-8953 is the number. That's where you can call in. Let us know how you feel. Let us know what you're thinking right now. We want to know.
Please chime in on this conversation. Because it's a fun one. So back to the cluster shuckery that was the RNC and this black police chief that formed his mouth to say things like, I am so happy that the rest of the officers were acquitted in Freddie Gray's murder.
Not a good thing to
say. In Freddie Gray's death is what he said. He didn't say murder. He said death.
That would have been insane.
And so
that would have been an insane statement. Now, they made some stupid statements. That would have been the best of them all, of all the stupid statements.
Oh yes.
But I could see that coming out of someone's mouth, because that sounds just about right.
Right. And there were 6 officers that were indicted behind this man's murder in police custody. 6. And apparently nobody killed him. Let that sink in. 6 officers acquitted for the murder of a man in police custody. Nobody did it, though. So it's amazing how many black people magically die in police custody, and apparently it's nobody's fault. Nobody's fault.
Just as a side note, so that you guys know that we don't beat a dead horse or a dead issue, and if you think that that's what this may be, you think you might be on the wrong side of the fence on a lot of things. What we do is we revisit a memorial of someone's death or passing, particularly when we believe it to be wrongful death, and so that we can actually put it back in perspective so that people remember what has happened, and so that they remember the facts of what has happened. Not conjecture, not something that we just conjured up. These are the facts. The facts are indisputable. 708-223-8953.
Oh, yeah. Here's some more facts. If you think that news is old, just a handful of days ago, a social worker was shot with his hands up in the air while he was lying on the ground, while he was trying to de-escalate a mental health break on behalf of an autistic child that the police were responding to. He's a mental health social worker. That's like his job, is to de-escalate a situation when somebody with a mental health issue has an episode. He was doing his job. The police showed up, told him to get on the ground. He did. He put his hands in the air, and then they shot him in the leg. Thank goodness he survived this and will live to tell the tale and hopefully sue the pants off of the police department and get some money. But
what nationality was this individual?
Oh, it was a black man, of course. Okay. Oh, wait. But there's more news. A judge recently tossed out the charges on a Florida police officer who killed another black man who was carrying an air rifle, a BB gun. Okay, on his back. His hands weren't even touching it. He was having a mental episode, and they were like, bang bang. Okay, this is exactly what Jesse Williams was talking about. An ability, some magical ability to de-escalate and not kill white people. But even when we're abiding by the law or abiding by orders and lying on the ground and our hands are in the air, it's target practice is basically what that is. So, I'm like, I know you didn't mean that we're beating a dead horse, because we're not, clearly. But I'm just like, for folks that are out there listening and they're like, why are they talking about that? It happened so long ago. Well, there's been like 6 more dead since. And because it takes forever for these things to get through the criminal justice system and go through the court proceedings.
And making a parallel, it's not happening. It didn't happen so long ago. It happens every day.
Right.
It's just dressed up differently. So we're making the correlation to what has happened that had the most publicity down to the things that are getting the least notoriety, but we're showing you on par that they are pretty much all the same thing.
Right. And so when they found this one black man who was in leadership in police to form his mouth to say these things at the Republican National Convention and receive roars of applause and approval. I swear, if anybody says that we're post-racial in front of me, I might have an involuntary throat shot for you. I mean, it just be like, oh, Tourette's. I'm sorry. I just like the word, the compound word, post-racial is going to produce a violent, involuntary reaction on my behalf.
Please don't say it, ladies and gentlemen.
Because that whole show in Cleveland.
I don't want her to have an involuntary reaction.
No,
I'm the closest thing to her right now.
No.
So I'm going to get the throat chopped. So don't call in with that term. I won't even say the term so that you'll know what it is.
You're going to meet my friend Tone. Dial tone. Okay.
708-223-8953. That's where you can get your dial tone, and you can call up the Mass Appeal Show here on IntellectualRadio.com. We're part of your iHeartRadio network. Every time you tune in on a Wednesday night, 8 to 10, you get this hard topic, riveting type of conversation from us, and we're covering everything. So we'll get to the social stuff, we'll get to a lot of the sports, we get everything, and then of course you get your music. We find genres of music that everyone enjoys listening to, find some stuff in the old crates and some of the old stuff in the back meters, and even some of your new stuff. Obviously, I like to just give you a little bit of everything here, and that's what you get on the Mass Appeal Show. Right now we're into everything politics, everything culture, everything that's what's going on, that's most important, and what's happening here on your everyday around the country and in your own backyard. Dree, what else?
So I guess then that just when you thought Donald Trump finished saying what he had to say for a couple of days, he comes right back after the RNC and challenges Russia to hack Hillary Clinton's server to find those emails.
Okay.
And yeah, I just right now they're trying to figure out if this is illegal in some way. Is this treason? Is it a treasonous statement? Does it violate somehow I think it's called the Logan Rule or the Logan Act. I don't.
Yeah, and what are the?
This man is running for president of the United States, calling for acts of treason.
He asked one of the.
What?
He asked one of the members of the Axis powers to find a way to help to find something incriminating on someone on American soil, obviously who he has a vested interest against, to do something completely illegal in a public forum setting. This guy is something special. But people seem to love him. They love his antics and shenanery. I don't know, Dree. Please don't do the throat chop because no one said the word. I didn't.
No, I'm just. This is the highest elected office in this country.
He's a comedy act. He is something else.
You know,
I don't know if it's the Logan's Rule or he lives in Logan Square, but this guy is something else, man. He's so ridiculous. It's a comedy act. He's an absolute comedy act.
And it would be hilarious if it weren't, like I said, so frightening to think that there's a very strong possibility he could be president. And here's why. I read an article the other day, pretty much an op-ed, essentially, blog post on Michael Moore's website. And, Michael Moore is a very renowned documentarian. You either love him or you hate him, or you like him sometimes, and then you're like, what, sometimes?
He's done everything from McDonald's to the White House.
Right, he's covered everything.
Everything?
Everything. And he is he has packaged information for people and succinct documentaries that are very, very, very informative on many levels.
He's a Netflix legend.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. So he's, I put some value behind, his observations, his societal and social observations, right? So the recent post that he made was 5 reasons why Trump can win this election. And of course, I'm going to read it because I'm like, okay, Mr. Moore, talk about it. So, few of these reasons. Number 1 being that Bernie's supporters are not all Democrats. They're independents, and they're Democratic-leaning independents, and they're moderate Republican-leaning independents, right? If just 15 to 20% of those folks don't vote for Hillary, that opens up a huge margin for Trump. And if they do vote for her, it's what's called what he is calling a depressed vote, which means they are going into the voting booth by themselves, and they're going to reluctantly vote for Hillary, and they're not taking anyone to the polls with them. They're not making phone calls. They're not knocking on doors. They're not excited. They're not posting about it on Facebook and Twitter and the YouTubes and the Instagrams and the Snappity chats and the Tinders. I don't know.
If they post on Tinder, that'd be funny.
They're not excited as excited or anywhere near as excited as they were in 2008 and then again in 2012 for Barack Obama. So another major reason, what he's calling
that's a pretty good one right there.
Yeah. What he's calling the anarchist effect. Now, hear me out. And this was very interesting what he said. He said he brought up the entire state of Minnesota who elected a pro wrestler as their governor.
How many electoral votes does the state of Minnesota get?
That's a good question. I would have to check that. But Minnesota, because of the Twin Cities, I would venture to say they're somewhere in the 40 range.
Okay.
I think. Don't quote me on that. We can go and fact check that. Or maybe one of our listeners will tweet it to us while they're listening.
Are they considered a blue or red state?
Largely blue. But that's a good question. They're more blue now. They've been purple before. I think now they're distinctly blue. And at any rate, but they elected Jesse Ventura, who's a Republican. But the reason why he said this happened is because, and I quote, well, no, I'm not quoting because I don't have it written down in front of me, and I paraphrase, because people voted for Jesse Ventura not because they thought he would be a good governor, but because they could. And they were like, oh my God, the novelty of it. I am voting for a pro wrestler to be my governor. How cool.
Anarchists. That's nice, because we could.
Right. And so this sort of falls in line too. We elected Jerry Springer, or a city elected Jerry Springer, Minnesota has 10 electoral votes. Just tweeted right now. That's odd. I thought they would have more than that.
Thank you.
What? But the Twin Cities is huge. Well, never mind. Maybe they are a big aggro state, and there's a lot of tundra at the northern end, so that makes sense. So 10. Oof, I was way off. 40. Oof.
Listen, I'm not gonna hold that
I see Illinois with the 40-something plus, and then I'm like, oh, okay, then they must have something near that. No,
I'm not gonna hold that math against you.
Well, that's reversed on there, so I forget we're on camera. Everything's reversed.
She's still good. Anyway,
so yeah, so we elected some.
Thanks for your tweets, as a matter of fact, right, there on the Mass Appeal show. Add Shy's People, add Mass Shy People, the Mass Appeal tweet account. Right. Twitter account. We appreciate those tweets that are coming in.
And more tweets.
Always.
And a correction, he was not a Republican Party, he was Reform Party candidate. So technically he's a third party candidate. Right? But still a pro wrestler who's been hit on the head.
That's a true story.
Multiple times with chairs, ladders, tables, and they elected him governor.
He's Jesse the Body, by the way. I want you to take away from his title.
Because they could, and they were like, oh my God, I'm voting for a pro wrestler to be governor. Ha 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 ha. He can't possibly win. Let me say that again. Ha 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 ha. He can't possibly win.
That's funny.
And lo and behold, they had a governor who might choke slam you.
That is funny business.
So, like I said, there's this trend. A city has elected Jerry Springer. Yes, that Jerry Springer as mayor.
Jerry.
We've elected a state has elected a pro wrestler,
an actor whose accent is worse than I think his acting.
Yeah, like a pro wrestler as governor, an actor as governor who wasn't even born. Is not a naturalized born citizen. But then again, it's not a requisite to be governor. It is to be president. But an actor twice has been the governor of California, Ronald Reagan. Let us not forget, who also ended up being president. An actor is president. Okay. Now we are here in 2016.
Let's start back from where that actor that we were speaking of, who wasn't born here though. That guy started as a bodybuilder. So that's where that's why he became an actor, because he
probably has done so many steroids.
Few steroids.
All of them, like Russia. Like the Russian Olympic
team. And they would
team.
know which ones he did. All the synthetics, everything.
Right.
100%.
And now we're in 2016, where we have a reality show buffoon, sociopathic, narcissistic, self-important, self-indulgent.
It's a lot of titles, Earl the Other Winfrey. It's a lot.
Misogynist, xenophobic.
I am not going to get a massage from this guy.
Moderately, probably really racist.
I'm not
bad
use
hair,
a xylophone that he's touched either.
Overly tanned,
That's
bloviating,
ugly tan. It looks like he's orange.
Douchebag.
Yeah, and
that
you don't want to put that up yourself right there, ladies.
For a major party for president of the United States. So when you form your lips to say, "Oh my God,"
lip form,
I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because there's no way he can possibly win. There are these nihilists that live among us that would go into the polling place and be like, "This can't possibly happen," but I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm entitled. I've got to vote. I'm going to do this.
And I'm a white man. Yeah. I'm a cis white man who's able-bodied, and duck it. You know what I mean?
Shuck it.
Right? And this is a very real thing. This is a very real, subset of people in this country that think that way and feel that way. And we'll be like, yeah, let's shake things up.
Well, Maura is definitely onto something, and I follow that line of thinking. I get it. I understand completely what's going on.
Yeah, and he also goes on to say, Hillary Clinton has in all of her sort of political experience and qualifications, we'll say, that she has been marred with all of these scandals, all of these sound bites of her flippity flopping, and calling black people super predators, or a lot of black people and people of color super predators, and there's not that excitement behind her campaign as there was for Barack Obama. And then she goes and picks a white guy, and not one that has been really out there as a staunch champion, or with the name recognition, just sort of like a vanilla, right? Nothing.
No pun intended there.
Right, it's a very vanilla running mate. So it's like, okay, so we don't really know who this guy is. I mean, we know he's a senator and he calls himself a progressive, and he's kind of voted in a progressive way for the most part. For the some part, and well,
obviously you as a strategist in the political arena, you know why she has to do that. Even though she chose a vanilla guy, she needed to be vanilla.
Virginia. She needed to capture Virginia
because she's going to get the female vote.
Right.
She's going to get a lot of the African American vote.
So then the fourth thing that Michael Moore mentioned is that the young female voters, by and large, aren't fans of hers. So the millennial female vote is not a fan of Hillary Clinton, which is really deep. Yeah. It was a really interesting read. A lot of the things I sort of had thought to myself, a lot of which I sort of thought to myself, but the nihilist piece and the and that that breakdown of who is Bernie Sanders' base and sort of how they'll split or how they could split was really intriguing to me. And then I went and of course and looked at Nate Silver's website 538.com. If you're listening, Nate Silver, feel free to toss us some money and sponsorship. I will gladly shout you out because he's a statistician. He's a numbers man, and his website will break things down to the very, very, very granular level. I mean, like, if you want to know, okay, you're a millennial voter, you're a female, you have 1 degree or no degree, and you make X amount of money, he can break down what that demographic looks like and how they're voting and how they voted in previous elections, and then make a very, very good prediction about who you're probably going to vote for this time around.
That's pretty good.
And he's like he has very accurately predicted the past few presidential elections, right? Within minute percentage points, but he's like he knows his stuff, right?
So when you went on there and you took a look, because now this is the build up,
right? When I went on there and took a look, listen to me now, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are both equally unpopular within their party.
Would you say though?
Based on polls. And that after
who is leading the charge in being equal as most unfavorable in their party?
Both of them.
They're
equally
split?
Unpopular or unfavorable now within their party, and their numbers nationally in terms of favorability are approaching the same. So not just nationally are they unpopular,
but they're converging on the
parties,
on the macrocosmic.
Correct.
Level. Wow.
So this was very interesting. The next piece, the next sort of one of the other options you can see on his website is his like sort of his is the aggregate of polling information and where they're polling at nationally, and then like the day of where they do all these live polls, and then he also aggregates information about like from those polls that are done that very day, and he'll do real-time polls and like who would win the election today if it were held today. And after this scandal broke out at the DNC, Hillary Clinton plummeted to a 43.5% or 42.5% chance of winning.
Now, she was just housing Goofy Benucci just a month ago.
Yeah.
And then obviously the RNC,
like
the RNC did absolutely nothing to help his case for running.
Oh no, the RNC. So what happens though in politics, and this is across the board, no matter how terrible your candidate is, like right after the convention, for that 45 days after the convention, there's going to be a bump in polls because the media is so saturated with stuff that you're talking about, and people are, voters are going to vacillate. Like 80% of people who are actually going to get up and go to get in line and vote are vacillating in their decision makings, process, or the degree to which they really like a candidate or don't like a candidate. So those polls will change after the media has been saturated with all of this stuff from one convention to the next. What pollsters will ultimately say is like, oh, this is this now, but it's not very reliable because it's the post-convention, during convention bump. But what really becomes the most critical polling is the stuff that happens in September. Right.
Now, I can get and understand the vacillating between those that do or don't like some of the things that may or may not be said at these conventions. What does it truly mean, though, at the end of the thing? So if this is almost like a Riemann sum, if you will, since we're using a statistician's numeric outlook on things as far as what they president of the United States is going to come from. If I'm looking at this as a Riemann sum, and I'm taking the build-up of all of these very small pieces of information on it. So obviously Trump is winning today. He's winning on Monday. He's winning on Tuesday. and the assimilated information that comes into a cluster, and they're formulating how he has come out in the percentage forms. Will it all truly make a difference? It's to say he has the conglomerate of victories over a 3-4 year span, and then Hillary comes out with something absolutely fantastic and then just blows him away for 3 or 4 days straight by a huge margin. Can I make a case that even though the parts and of the whole won't make the sum of the largest volume of activity, how would that translate?
Yeah, so they end up netting positive in many ways, but then it's after you're 45 days out where that net positive is either on one side consistently or the other side consistently.
A perfect positive, right. Perfect negative correlation.
Right, and so that's sort of how.
That's a true statistician's point of view.
Yeah. But what his website is really, really good at too is doing comparative analyses to previous presidential elections based on the bases that voted for those candidates. Okay. And also based on polls like these sort of potentially unrelated polls, but that are useful in determining what voters are thinking right now. So like, would you vote for Mitt Romney or Hillary Clinton?
Okay.
So they're basically assessing, based on that person who's participating in the poll, comparing that data set to that election season data set, and then comparing what those bases look like. So is it more women? Is it more men? Is it more folks with degrees? More folks who are blue collar? Is it poor people? Is it
you already know
people?
What you've done to me right now. You've just set you've set the nerd meter off in me. So now I got to go on to Nate Silver so I can see where he's using his standard deviation.
538.com.
Yeah, I got to see where 538.com. Mm-hmm. I got to see where he's using his standard deviation system to find out how he's getting particular victors on an everyday basis, because from one day to the next, his standard. So let's, for the sake of argument, without making it more complicated than it needs to be, if Trump has a bunch of goofy things that come into the positive deviation on this side, it sways what happens with Hillary on her backside. So she loses points on her negative deviation. So if conversely it happens on the same side the way it happened with him and her, she has positive things comes in and it comes as a negative for him on him. It takes away from where he is in the poll, so it brings back the mathematics to the middle. Now let's just say, for the sake of argument, both of them have a day where they're both sitting in the positive standard deviation up a notch. Who leans forward? How does he figure that part out then?
Well, that I think is where the third party data comes in terms of how that sort of fits into the puzzle, because it's not just two people running, it's actually four people, but Gary Johnson is polling higher than Jill Stein right now. So I think that what he does is he uses Gary Johnson as one of those variances. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's factoring Jill Stein into that. So based on,
why does she not get factored?
It's such a small portion of the whole. I don't think it's enough to tip the scales appreciably one way or the other.
Mm.
So take a look.
I'm gonna make a very, very bad parallel.
It's fascinating.
The fact that the woman's material doesn't factor into the deviation module. That just makes it seem like women are being left out somehow in this deal.
Oh, definitely women are part of it. Single moms are actually one of the most influential voting blocks in this country, and can tip an election, can absolutely win or lose an election for somebody. So that does factor in. He'll break down voter bases to women and single moms. Like he'll it's fun. You just dig into the website. It's full of numbers and articles and blogs, and like he does a really great job of curating that site with content as well, because there's other contributors to that site. I like it.
It's Nate Silver at what, 538.com?
538.com. So
Make sure you guys are taking a look at that.
It will probably give you, in my opinion, one of the best data-driven perspectives about this election. Yeah.
Let's take a musical break right there before they have information.
And then we'll start talking about the DNC here on IntellectualRadio.com. iHeartRadio.
That's Hero,
Don't
guys.
change for me.
Don't do it. This
Take
is
me as I am.
That's it. That's all I want you to do.
That's what was one of my favorite songs, and from the movie/musical/movie Rent.
Ooh, good. Yeah, good musical.
Take me as I am.
Sing it. Do it.
Ooh, I was meant to be.
This is the Mass Appeal Show. IntellectualRadio.com. It's part of your iHeartRadio network. We're covering everything today. From the Democratic National Convention to the Republican National Convention to what's happening across the nation and in your own backyard. We're going to try to wrap it up here as quickly as possible.
Oh, I can wrap it up real.
Yeah, but we're going to get to some more of the core stuff. So if you guys still have stuff that you want to chime in on, please do it. 708-223-8953. We want to hear from you. We do. We don't want to have to screen it and just, take you off the air. We want to know what you have to say. We want to know. So try to keep it clean. Try to keep your ideas at least organize and centralize your thoughts. We got a lot of feedback on the Twitters.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have that. And we appreciate that as always at MassShyPeople75. So we appreciate that as always. But we want to hear from you. 708-223-8953. Dree?
Yes. So in short, we'll cover the DNC quickly because it's still in milieu de. So it's still going on. We can talk about it more next week. But in short, days before, I think it was actually the day or two. No, it was maybe like 2 days before the DNC kicked off. WikiLeaks has made it known that all of my suspicions were confirmed from the beginning of the primary season. The DNC is blocking me and it's working against my campaign, and it's true.
Did you go New York on me right there? Did you just go New York on me?
I tried to go Bernie. I was trying to channel my inner Bernie.
That had a little New Yorkish in it.
But he is from New York.
That's what I'm saying. It had it.
And the system is rigged. It's been rigged from the beginning, and we are fighting a fight, and we fought that fight. And
that's that Jewish New York right there too. That's strong New York.
Right. It comes out, WikiLeaks. Thank you very much, Julian Assange, for letting us know what was really going on, because we suspected it, and now we are correct in it. And so essentially, the Democratic National Committee chairwoman
must have quit in a different variation.
I did.
Okay.
It was my version.
You're getting it.
Boom. Rhyming. And so, although technically, I just did the worst rap rhyme because I rhymed it with it. So, anyway.
It's the new millennium version.
It's the new millennium version.
Millennium rap, you can do anything.
Yeah,
no holds barred, everything
You're totally
is good.
right. You're totally right.
You're good.
So essentially, the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was outed vis-a-vis her emails with staffers, essentially blocking not just Bernie, but also effectively working against Martin O'Malley. Poor Martin. Oh. Throughout the entirety of the primary season, like putting up roadblocks, losing paperwork. I haven't even read all the emails, and they're probably not even all there, or all released yet, but the sort of major points of which have been released. And at any rate, it huge scandal, and this is obviously what tanked Hillary in these polls on 538.com, or in these numbers and projections on 538.com, because folks are like, really we're going into this, and now you're telling us? Like, all of Bernie supporters are fired back up again about this, angry, justifiably, in coming to terms with the actual reality, the reality that this was going on the entire time of the primary. So she's now resigned from her post. She is no longer. She's been kicked off of the agenda for speaking opportunities at the DNC, rightfully so. But then, of course, not one day later, she's working on Hillary Clinton's campaign. Look at my face. I mean, really? I mean, from a purely, I don't care how much you like the woman, as the presidential candidate for whom the fix was in and for, the optics of hiring the woman who was complicitous in this as a leader of a major party's committee? Or on what planet does that look like a good idea? It looks terrible.
Did you just Barkley out?
I did. I Barkley. It's terrible. It looks terrible, and it will only work to her disadvantage in terms of further incensing people she needs to win over. So if she loses, it will be because of the culmination of these terrible decisions and winning over these voters. Bernie can only do so much. He can only ask us so much. He can't go in the voting booth with all of us and put our finger on the box for Hillary Clinton. You know what I'm saying? You got to work with him, and you're not doing a very good job of it in the wake of this scandal. So I don't know. This is why I have such great worry leading up to November. I don't know.
At the end of the day, what does it all take? What are you taking away from what's going on? Well, I'm going to try to wrap this up in one really nice big package. We know what's happening with all the goofy stuff at the Republican National Convention, the consecutive days of unadulterated racist foolishness and things that aren't beneficial to the country themselves, with maybe one or two viable statements that work towards something that would work in helping out the United States. We know that at the Democratic National Convention, so far, they're really just trying to pin another emailing scandal on Hillary Clinton, and the people that have been right behind that and instrumental with trying to put that out there, they're doing a diligent job of masking her real policy and really trying to show all the other stuff. And then she has to continue to do goofy stuff like defend herself and try to find other ways of deflecting all of that attention, which makes her look like a woman, like she's going to continue to fight and battle stuff that she really doesn't necessarily have to if she just tries to stay on policy. But by the same token, she has to address it because it is an issue. And
it's absolutely. I mean, if Hillary was a man in this election and that had happened and the fix was in, it would still look terrible.
What had happened was
it would still look terrible to hire the person who just resigned for a scandal to help you, give you the leg up throughout the entire primary process, which is supposed to be unbiased.
So
So
the 538.
Yeah, 538.
Nate Silver, and let's taking all of his
YouTube
thoughts and processes.
FLOTUS's speech.
Moore's
the president is speaking tonight.
Opinion over whether or not or how Trump could get in, and what is the potentials that would lead up to those figures in which he could possibly overcome.
Right.
What is your real gut feeling? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what our listeners really want to know, because they take your opinion, they take your thoughts in extremely high regard. For the next leader of our free nation, the President of the United States, of this country, when it comes on the back of one Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, where do you honestly feel the next direction of our country is going?
Every day, I grow more and more convinced that voters are going to defect from both parties. They're going to vote for a third-party candidate, and we will not have a winner come November. I think it's going to go to Congress. The first instance, the 1800s? I think it will go to Congress. I think we are that split as a nation, and that polarized right now with our given candidates, that there are going to be a lot of protest votes, and they're going to go to Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, and nobody's going to get the requisite 240, and it's going to go or 241. It's going to go, I think, to Congress. Every day that goes by, this becomes more and more of a reality. The more I hear from people, the more I see these numbers. I'm just like, they are too close in these polls every day. I mean, a butterfly could flap its wings in China, and by November, Congress is going to be picking our president, or not November. I need to look into this, what the timeline looks like, because the new Congress has to pick the president if nobody wins the requisite 241 or 242. You got it, 241. I don't know why this number is escaping me right now. My mind is moving too quickly. But if nobody gets that requisite number of electoral votes, the new Congress will have to select the president, and they have to select from the top 3 vote getters in that election cycle, which will obviously be Hillary, Trump, and most likely Gary Johnson. Now,
perspective from our most important insider, our very own Dree.
Yeah. Do I want to see that? Not really. No, I don't. But this is the kind of gut feeling that I'm getting out of this, the more and more I see these numbers.
Well, let's hope that it doesn't lead to the first time since the early 1800s that this has happened, so we won't.
I think it was like 1824.
I can't
remember.
For the lesser of two evils, what I'm really choosing in the next president of the United States, because I don't have a lot of confidence in either one of them right now.
270.
Yeah.
Is the requisite number of votes. 271. Where did I get 241? I'm off today.
I just don't have that much confidence.
I'm off by the number 30. Maybe I should go play the number 30 in the lottery.
A raving and roving reporter are in the streets with his ear to the grind. Everything politics, everything sports related. Wendell, where are you at, man? Because I'm about to make a transition. Crosstown Classic.
Although on Twitter has told me, I did get 1824 right. Boom.
Well, congratulations on 1824. I think 4 years before that was the Mexican independence, 1820.
Mexican independence?
Was it?
No, that was 18. No, 18. Wait,
well,
Mexican independence? That wasn't that 1912, 1914?
For Mexican independence? No, La Raza. Let's see. Hold on. Let's go way back.
I'm thinking of the Mexican-American War, maybe.
I think Mexican independence is 1820.
Okay.
I feel
it could be. Yeah, you may be right.
I feel like I'm right on top of that one. I feel like that.
History.
Yeah, I think we're 4 years
on that.
From
that is limited.
Well, we'll table it for right now, but I feel good about that. If Wendell has some info on that, if you guys, some other people there who are tweeting us in real time, go ahead and send that in. 708-223-8953. The Crosstown Classic, having the first 3 games almost in the books. First 2 going to the White Sox on the south side. Now the Cubs, taking it back to Wrigley Field at the friendly confines, as they've always been known as, have a 3-1
I don't know
lead
about that.
In the
Have you ever seen
inning.
a brawl in Wrigleyville?
A couple. But usually it's pretty friendly. But in the bottom of the 8th, the Cubs are holding on to a 3-1 advantage over the White Sox. The Cardinals have already won their game. The Cubs holding a 6.5 lead in their division right now. So they can only hope to match, because they would lose a full game if they do not pull this one out. But the Cubs are winning right now at home, 3-1 right now in bottom of 8th. The White Sox will have another opportunity in the top of the inning if they do not score an additional run in here to try to cut through that 2-run lead and try to pull this one out. Having 3 games in the books with Chris Sale on the mound would be unbelievable for them in this Crosstown Classic, but I don't know if that's going to unfold. However, first 2 games, I just don't know what has been happening. The White Sox just came out and pitched well. They really got on the mound and found situational places. James Shield, who was not having the best outlook as a James Shielder in the first 3 or 4 starts that he had as a White Sox after coming over, he did start to show that he was himself before the All-Star break, and since then he's pitched very well. He virtually shut the Cubs down completely yesterday, and that was the difference. And now the White Sox put a rookie out there. For all intents and purposes, that's what he was. The Anthony Renato, and
1821.
yeah, and he himself pretty much came out there, pitched a really nice game, and then they put in the bullpen's hand. They've had a couple of mishaps there, and the Cubs took the lead out there. Bottom of the 8th right now, 3-1. The Chicago Cubs over the White Sox at the moment.
Do you think you could turn your hat inside out for me?
I could. What purpose?
Because we got to rally for the Sox.
Oh, they're going to do the rally cap. We're going rally cap. Seeing that I'm technically a Cubs fan, I think that would be blasphemy. However, there is an internal reason why I don't want the Cubs to win the games, because I did say that they would not win this division, and I still stand by that. And there are people that I still have made wagers with that I still have to hold firm that the Cubs would not win this division. I believe that they're going to eventually have this unfold, and it's not going to be pretty at the end of it, because all the Cubs fans who think that this is the year for them to win everything are going to go insane. And of course, this being the year, they've made some adjustments and they've made some additions. The latest addition to the Cubs roster includes Aroldis Chapman, who is the ace closer who was for the New York Yankees, tapping out his fastball at 104 miles an hour, a guy who has thrown heat since he's been there, started out with the Cincinnati Reds and since moved on, but has had a very speculative past, and one of those particular speculative concerns was his bout that he incurred with domestic violence. There's a lot to the story about he and his girlfriend and what happened and what transpired, but that has followed him from the city of New York. Now, New York media, if you haven't had an opportunity to experience anything in New York, the New York media makes the Chicago media look like a joke. But wherever Aroldis goes now, it's going to follow him everywhere like a bad habit. The problem is, even in the latest introduction to the organization, Chicago Cubs introduced Aroldis Chapman to the media, and his native tongue is Spanish, so he's not an English speaker, so he has to have a translator. And during his presentation to the media, of course, they addressed this issue, and it was not translated very well. A lot of the things that were discussed or whatever, and it left a bitter taste in the mouth, because a lot of the stuff that the media does is over-perpetuated, and it's made out to be more than what it needs to be, because they have to drive ratings themselves. So this is what the nature of it is. So this has made Theo look bad. It's made other people in the Cubs organization look bad because it didn't look like they prepped him enough for that. First of all, you don't need to prep anybody. Let me tell you something. If you know that you're going to, you're responsible for your own self. You know that you had a checkered past with what's going on. They come and ask you the questions. What I don't believe in is the fact that you have to continue to badger someone over something. He's been exonerated of this. He's been taken out in the public court. He's been taken out in criminal court. He's been taken out in civil court, and all of these things have been taken care of. Now, in the court of public opinion, and that is basically where the media really extends their arm of the law, they've turned this into a sideshow. And it's ridiculous, and that's what I don't enjoy about it. Because if you're going to try to play on my emotional and psyche as a fan, then I don't like that at all. Now, here's something I'm going to make a statement, because I don't know if I can make this statement without it potentially seems becoming hypocritical. But I'm going to try to close this as best as I can. Anything short of any individual molesting a child or raping a woman, these are offenses that I don't think that you're cleared of. And so I hope that if it's brought up and it goes to court. Oh wait, no,
there was a young man named Brock Turner.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Another athlete.
Yeah. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
He got 6 months for rape.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's only going to serve 2 of them.
Yeah.
And he's got to go to drug prevention program.
Right. Now, those offenses are things that I don't think that most humans should not live with, regardless of if some team thought that it was going to help their organization by putting this guy in the field. The problem that I have with the way that someone would take a stance over whether or not the Cubs should have Aroldis Chapman on their starting in their lineup as their closer because he's had those transgressions and he's been, accused of domestic violence and in some cases found guilty, and in some cases charges dropped or whatever the situation to be. What the heck does that have to do with that guy throwing that baseball? I think they've just created some type of other situation where it's made it ugly because I looked up some figures that are going to blow you away. I'm pretty sure you could probably go 538.com and find this all over Nate Silver's site, but if he wanted to go ahead and take a look at it. Domestic violence in our country ranks as greater than murder by an
leaps and bounds. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he's predominantly responsible for most of the domestic violence calls.
White men?
Law enforcement.
Oh, that's right. We had this. Yeah, we had this.
Which
we
is
had this conversation.
Unbelievable. It's
a while
members
ago,
of law enforcement.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want people to go into the glass house, throw the stone thing, and break your own windows and start doing stuff where you pretty much back yourself into a corner where you can't get out.
Now, I wonder how many wife beaters are correlated with cops who kill black people.
Listen, this is about to get ugly. I'm going to try to stay in one area so I don't have to get too far off
True that. Go.
Because this could get more ridiculous by the second. When you call into a show like this one, 708-223-8953, and you tell me that you don't want Aroldis Chapman on your team because he had a domestic violence mark against him, I just want you to also tell me that you don't know anyone who has had a disagreement with their wife, anyone who has had a situation where they put their hand on them physically, or anyone who has done anything. Now, those figures that I just really came out as far as them being unbelievably exponentially bigger and greater than all the other figures of any other violent acts in America, those came from married couples. We're not even talking about domestic cases where it involves really just the girlfriend, or in some cases your own, in homosexual relationships, your own other male or other female mate. This is something that's just strictly for the married couples, and I'm looking at those figures and they're unbelievable. So I'm just hearing a lot of people telling, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you remember the rule of thumb? That you could beat your wife with a stick as long as it wasn't wider than your thumb.
So unbelievable.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that we've come a long way. But what people can look at and turn things, but it's the media putting a spin. And I get it, I understand, but it's ridiculous. I just want people to start to think for themselves and stop being ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I heard a goofball call into the show and say, "What is about this Aroldis Chapman kid? Who do you think we're gonna have him in there? This guy's a girlfriend beater and a whole bunch of this." So okay, knucklehead. So you heard that he had a domestic violence case, and you heard that he had an altercation with his wife or a girlfriend.
What ethnicity is Aroldis?
I believe he's Cuban. All right. Now, having come from,
and where was all of this conversation when it was a white guy beating his wife?
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Let me tell you something. If a guy has then, for his transgressions, he's made peace with it, and the initial victim of it, they've come to terms, and they're working through it, just like the Ray Rice issue and the whole bit, and they're looking to make their lives better. Why are you revisiting this every time? You know what I'm saying? Go to the source. If she wants you to revisit it every time, then I think it should be okay. I don't think that you're thinking as a media, you can't convince me that you're doing her some honor, like you're doing her some favor, that you're trying to keep her best interest in mind. This has nothing to do with her, and I don't even want anybody to get fooled into believing any of that at all. This is about ratings, and this is about the nonsense that's perpetuated by the media.
Yeah, and it's also the media bias towards vilifying the very same action from two different people, one being of a darker hue than the other, and it becomes a more inflated issue for that person of color than it does for that same white offender. And after who was it? It was that football player.
DeRay Rice?
Was it DeRay Rice?
Or the one?
The most recently.
The beat his girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a white guy.
Gosh, I can't pull him, but it was also Hardy had the Hardy kid had a situation where he beat his girlfriend.
Yeah, and she was like out walking on the street covered in bruises. Like, and it was after that moment where that became sort of a springboard to having a larger conversation about domestic violence nationally, and sort of now that's where that conversation lies. And I think because we are at that level of conversation about domestic violence in general, that I'm not going to say that perhaps they're going too hard on Araldus or not as equally hard on other folks. I think now the conversation is from that demarcation in time. Now all of the conversations need to be elevated, and I'm actually okay with that in the sense that, if it's not contractually, if it's not in the contract where you have an ethics clause, and he's therefore still allowed to play based on the rules of that organization, then those are the rules of that organization. If legally, she's not going to press charges and they want to work it out, couples are, I'm fully open to couples working it out. You know what I mean?
This gets to people's moral appetite, because this says to me, if it wasn't brought to the media's attention, did it not exist? Did it didn't happen? Because I want to look down the past of every single Cubs player on that roster, because they all look great on the surface.
Right.
And I want to say, did one of you tap one of your girlfriends up one time? Did you tap her on the head? Did you slap her around? Did you push her at any time, but she didn't say anything?
Mm-hmm.
Does that change your perspective on this issue? Does that change the way that you look at Anthony Rizzo? Because Anthony Rizzo is a really good player. He seems like a really nice guy. That's fantastic. But if you found out today or tomorrow that he had tapped his girlfriend's head a few times and bashed her up against a refrigerator, now do you get rid of Anthony Rizzo? And then how about we go ahead and look down the line? Because 2 years ago, Chris Bryant may have taken a girlfriend that he was dating and punched her in the stomach, and then she fell down, and then he slammed her head in the door. Now we found out here. Let's get rid of Chris Bryant too. Now, at the end of the day, when you find out things and they're brought to light, now where do your real loyalties lie in them? Because now I want to hear, you want to just say, because this is the flavor of the month, because this is truly just the flavor of the month, because this is an Araldus issue that is old, but we're new because we get him, and we're getting. So tell me something. Are we getting a Aroldis Chapman? He's about to beat some other Cubs players. That's about to happen. That's what you're so concerned with, or you're so concerned with the fact that he's beating his wife all the time that you're not going to think he's not going to be able to pitch on Monday. What the heck is your concern? Were you concerned with her or his character? You're so worried about what the character is of the players that are on the team. When one of them didn't like let me just throw this one out there. John Lackey is the biggest douchebag in the world when he's on the mound. Completely a douche. When he's on the mound, he thinks that everything he does is okay. He'll hit batters and do all this stuff. This is malice. These are maliceful things. And you're talking about competitive. Competitive is what you qualify as what you can tolerate morally as something that should or shouldn't be done.
Yeah. That's
what I say, because I can say that me and the girlfriend had a conversation. It got extremely competitive. I didn't like what she had to say, so I tapped that eye one time. That's what I did. Now, let the first thing be known that I don't condone this. This is not something that I want to be doing, and I'm not going to do it. And this is something that you have to have a tremendous amount of restraint, because people that are around each other all the time and that they take up that same space with each other, they have to deal with each other's issues on an everyday basis. And sometimes that can become ridiculous.
And gross infidelities. I mean, like there's that. I mean, and I'd be interested to see sort of where the intersection of steroid use comes into this.
And we're not looking at we're not looking at a justification for this, because there is none.
There is none.
You don't hit them. You don't hit the female. You don't hit the male. You don't hit each other.
You walk it out.
But there you go. Yeah. Walk it out. Okay. Now walk it out. That's what you need to do. Other than that, I don't want to hear anybody trying to find a justification for it, because there's not. I will tell you, though, that the things will happen. They will continue to happen, because when you are in the presence of someone who you do love that probably didn't change, and you guys have differing opinions, and you have to be underneath each other all the time. Your opinions sometimes don't match up with your feelings that you're having during that time or moment in space, and that's where issues become. Now, I want them to tell me which one of the media contingent is a psychoanalyst, a therapist that's licensed in the city of Chicago. Which one of them is? Because I'm trying to figure out how the heck do they know what was going through this guy's mind, what he's thinking, what he should or shouldn't have done. When did you get authority to give all that out? When did you do it? Okay, I don't know when the heck any of them did, or when they could tell me about how someone's body language did this and what that told them about this. Because I heard a bunch of media people who were on the press conference talk about how he was getting the words translated by someone else who really didn't have the full translation in the best order, and they could tell by his body language that he didn't want to be in that environment. Yeah, he didn't want to be in the environment. You guys have now started to talk to him in his non-speaking language. And now he's getting questions that he's taking like you're playing a game of Pepper,
not his native language,
getting bashed out of him. Luckily, it was fixed by Pedro Gomez, who is a astute ESPN beat reporter / everything, and he is a certified translator, and he came and did a one-on-one with Aroldis in his native language without having any English being there except for the English that he spit back to the camera so that they would know what was being transferred as far as the conversation was concerned in a true translation. That was the one thing that was a saving grace. But I just don't know where people find this. It's more ridiculous. Well, I don't want to continue to beat this because we're pressed for time. I wanted to get to Chris Sale. Going back on to the South Side, Chris Sale, who is on the trading blocks, of course, too, with even more so, it's been over the last week with the issue that during the game where they're having the throwback jersey game, apparently the uniforms were uncomfortable to the point where Chris Sale decided that he would just cut up everyone's uniform on throwback jersey day. And this got obviously turned into a huge issue with the management, and they had to send him home, so he wasn't even able to play in that game on that day.
I didn't know.
5-game suspension, 5 days worth of suspension, and he will actually be back to pitch the finale of the Crosstown Classic tomorrow against the Cubs at Wrigley Field tomorrow night. But this issue had become a huge issue because this says a couple of things. Now, I understand wholeheartedly that this particular uniform has been uncomfortable because I know those uniforms. There's the 76 version uniforms, and they're the longer sleeves. And they're the longer onto your throwing arm, and with the way that he slings and being a hurler, that probably becomes really uncomfortable and difficult for him to be able to throw consistently with the way he wants to at that arm angle. That doesn't justify the fact that he decided that he was just going to take it upon himself to cut the uniforms up, which is ridiculous, because I don't give a cotton pick.
That's pretty ballsy.
You got going on in your world. When you make $12 million a year, you wear what they want you to wear. If you want them, they want you to put some lingerie on about that joint.
Wear a tutu. You're going to wear that tutu.
I said exactly that.
You're going to be the most paidest
tutu wearing.
Some of them are wearing a tutu.
Some of them shakava. Okay.
Really, that's interesting. So, but then what did they have to do? They ended up having to wear them cut, right? Because I don't remember seeing the sleeves in the first Crosstown game.
Right. So what they did was they eventually had to make the adjustment on there. They always have backups, so they did.
Oh, they do have backups.
Okay. It's a major league team. They do come prepared.
I know they get new uniforms basically like every game.
Every game, yeah. It's pretty ridiculous, but that's the way. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization, so this is the way that things go. Here we go. He's been suspended, and he rightfully so, because that's a ridiculous move. It was up to the brass to find out when you have the #1 pitcher in the American League who's having difficulties. That's something that should be communicated. Whether or not it was, the media is going to make a bigger issue out of it, because they're going to say that's a failure to have you and your top pitcher be on the right page, and it's something more than what it should be. No, that's just a guy who decided to make a really bad decision and turn it into a worse decision and made a personal thing stand between he and the team. At that point, you have to apologize to the team, because that's you taking too much of your own personal thoughts and processes into everything else. Now, even if you heard some people who were disgruntled over those uniforms, it is not your it's not your place to decide what the new tailoring of the uniform should be.
Right.
And you
yeah.
taking it personally in order to do it. They pay you to pitch, not to cut. They don't pay you to go ahead and solder anything on inside of the clubhouse. They don't pay you to do anything with the field outside with Roger Bossard and the outside of that field. They don't pay you to do any construction. They pay you to hurl that baseball, and that's what you should be doing. If you have something of an issue, you take it to the brass, and they could get it fixed. Because I'm pretty sure you bring it to the brass the right way, they'll say, "Okay, that's fine." He's in the wrong, 100%. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's kind of like a very childish way to handle that.
Pretty ridiculous,
too.
yeah, in every regard. Now, even if he made reference to it, when you take a cutting utensil to it, yeah, you've lost it. That's where it is. But Chris Sale, and this has been a debate for quite some time, because they're looking to get the max value back for what they want for Chris Sale, and they were looking at people who are on potential playoff bound teams that are looking for a starter that could really, really help their organization. Chris Sale would be a number one in everybody's book, whatever. And the White Sox want number one type prospects back for him, which they should. I don't think personally that they should be able to, that they should get rid of him. That is an isolated incident.
I think he's a really great value.
Tremendous value. And he's a reason why people still come to the ballpark. He's another reason why that people will be tuning in. So they want to see if they're going to not only beat the Cubs, but if Chris Sale is going to come out there and make good on what he has done with not being there when they needed him. They're going to see that in its all of its luster, and that's what's important to people. Now you can see at least on every fifth day that the White Sox will be able to fill that stadium, which is becoming a ghost town very slowly every day because of the fact that Chris Sale is out there. He's a commodity. When you turn it around, and I don't think they're as far away as people are pretending them to be, because they have some pieces at work. This Tim Anderson kid at shortstop has really asserted himself into the lineup, shows that he can handle the bat, and he's certainly a defensive gymmer. So that makes them getting younger in spots that they can get younger at. And then you still have Frazier, who is still a home run hitter, who will come around as far as the bat is concerned on being an average better hitter. And then you still have Abreu at first base. So you got the corner infielders who bash the ball. And now it's going to be for you fixing up that outfield with little bits and pieces. I don't like the fact they gave up Trace Thompson, who I thought was a really good young player that was really going to make an ascension in the American League as a hitter. You can't cry over spilled milk now. Quintana and Sale, and both of them in the rotation, I think that's a really nice 1 and 2 piece that you have there. And so now you have to just work on the other stuff, get your bullpen together. But now you're telling me you're going to trade them all away, and then we're going to have all these but these guys still have to come to fruition. They still have to develop. So now I got nothing but pure development over a period of time. When I still have people that are in the minor league that are still coming through for development, I still can trade some other pieces off and get some stuff back. I don't believe that I need to trade my number one. And I don't know why someone needs to convince me that I need to trade my number one. Who's the best? Why you're trading me a potential Hall of Famer? I don't know why that could be. But he's not going to be a potential Hall of Famer. I realize that Chris Sale is coming around. But, well, I mean, listen, if he continues to pitch at the pace that he is and the way that he's doing it, there is a real good chance that he might. Well, we'll table that for a better conversation at a later date. We've covered so much stuff here today. I really wanted to touch real fast on the Rio situation. The Russians are finding the drugs everywhere. We know that's going on.
Right.
I know you wanted to touch on that real fast, so go ahead and knock that out for about 15, 20 seconds.
Oh, well, I'm just worried about what happens after Rio when everybody comes back with Zika.
We'll pick that up next week. It's the Mass Appeal Show. This is IntellectualRadio.com. We're part of your iHeartRadio network. And myself, Mag One, for the lovely Dree.
Yes. And make sure, my lovelies, you always keep listening and you keep talking here on IntellectualRadio.com. Good night, my lovelies.
Holla back.
iHeartRadio.